And I just thought about it and I thought, what am I doing when I'm grumpy? What am I doing when I'm happy? What kind of work is this? There's different kinds of work. And we came up with this model. All I was doing was trying to explain my own grumpiness. And I figured out that day that there's 3 kinds of work. And within each of those 3 kinds of work, there's 2 different activities. And whenever I got grumpy, I was being asked to do something I didn't like to do. I wasn't particularly good at it. And I thought, there it is. I didn't think I was coming up with a product. I thought I just solved my own problem. Well, one of our consultants saw the model that we had on the board, and he used it the next day with the CEO he was working with, who was really frustrated. And the guy had tears in his eyes, and he was like, this explains everything. So then we had it on a whiteboard in my house, and everybody that came over, we would do it with them. And we realized there's something going on here. And then Cody, my partner at work, one of mine, said, this is going to be bigger than the 5 dysfunctions. And I was like, you think so? And he goes, absolutely. And it looks like it's a lot bigger than the 5 dysfunctions now.
You're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast, where we go behind the scenes with today's top HR leaders and work experts. We talk to them about how they've gotten to where they're at, what they do every day, and what they see coming next for the future of work. Hope you enjoy. Pat, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
It's great to be here. I can't wait to talk to you guys. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, as Stephen was saying, we have one of the leadership legends here on the podcast. I feel like, Stephen, you actually introduced me to Pat's work back in Workify days when we worked together for the first time like 10 years ago. Is that right, Stephen?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so, Pat, we were just saying how we're going to have to set up time to kind of go deep on our backgrounds and stuff, just because we were already having so much fun chatting pre-recording. Fun fact about me, I ran an engagement survey startup after being an HR practitioner for 12 years. I caught the entrepreneurial bug and launched an engagement survey company around 2014, 2015. We weren't one of the winners. We ended up exiting, but we weren't one of the big winners. And the early days of our model, our culture model, was very much, based, some of it was like part your work, the 5 dysfunctions work. It was part, God, and the names are escaping me, but there were 2 or 3 other, like what I believe to be seminal kind of leadership resources. And so very early in Workify was the name of the engagement survey company. Daniel, I had the entire team kind of do a crash course on 5 dysfunctions and what are the most critical factors were to drive kind of cultural improvement, employee engagement, et cetera, et cetera. So fun fact there, because I'm going to nerd out on this stuff this entire hour we're together, but that's why.
It's so cool to hear that because so I was going about my business in 2014, 2015, to think that there was this other group out there doing their thing, basing some of it on our stuff. I just love that because you're not even aware of it. Now, I have to say that the word Workify, though, that crossed my screen at one point.
Absolutely.
Because I remember thinking, that's a cool name. So I must have known about you guys.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We reached out and, those were busy times. We're talking about a long lost time, but
I know.
It's great to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure and honor.
And Pat, so we start every show the same way, and that's with something that we call good news stories. So we all go around and we share something from the last week or two. Could be personal, it could be work related, just whatever's coming to mind for you. And we like for our guests to go first.
Good news. Wow, lots of good things. My son is moving to Tennessee from California because we just moved here a year ago. And my son is moving here. He met a wonderful woman and we are so happy. So that is really good news. And then a colleague of mine, him and his wife, have both been struggling with some health issues and they got good news that that everything's fine. So those are good news. Praise God.
Those are great. I'm going to go work related because I feel like every good news story I've had the last 4 or 5 months has been related to my baby. I'm going to go with good news about our event that we're having next week. So we do quarterly in-person events and next week is our first ever 2-day event. All the other ones have been 1 day. And so with 2 days, instead of having to schedule 3 speakers, you need 9. Instead of having to get 3 sponsors, you need like 7 or 8. You got to sell tickets for both days. And so there are just so many little details. Instead of catering for 1 day, you have to have catering for 2. You need AV for 2 days. And so all of the details are together. It always feels like we pull off a miracle the day of the event, and I'm feeling that way again. But so far, so good. I'm feeling very good about it, and I'm excited. So
It's down in Austin, right?
it's in Austin.
Down in
Yeah.
Austin,
how fun.
December 10th and 11th. And what you don't know, Pat, is that I convinced Daniel to do events reluctantly. Second, I pitched him on expanding this particular event to be our first 2-day event. And so I'll go right into my good news. So I am creeping out of event. I run the events line of business, and I'm creeping out. I've been in a hole literally for the last 3 weeks, just grinding on getting the programming set, getting the vendors locked down. And so I'm feeling good. And Daniel, I think we can be confident. It's going to be great. It's going to be great next week. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's wonderful. You know, we've done events throughout my career. I've done events before I started the table group and then at the table group, and they're the best and the worst. I mean, it's so hard. But the events themselves are so wonderful, aren't they?
They are. You leave so
and
energized.
then after,
There's
and then
no better
after,
feeling after.
Right. And then, but then there's that hangover. You're just like, I've been working on this for people are gone. What do I do now?
Yeah.
That's so accurate.
Well, and that kind of dovetails perfectly to my next good news, because I am literally going to be disappearing for a while because my wife and I had our 36-week check-in. So Daniel's not giving baby news, but I will. We are having a baby boy. We co-parent 2 teenage girls. So this is recently got married again, and my beautiful wife wanted to start a family, which of course I was happy to do. But I told her, like, I'm 49, so I'm no spring chicken. And we got pregnant and everything has checked out. And we got our 36-week appointment. We had that on Monday. And so the due date, baby is a little over 6 pounds, should be trending about 7.5 pounds. Due date is still tentative for December 26th. So right after this event, I'm going to go through my hangover period, and then I'm literally just going to get sideswiped.
Dad mode.
Yeah.
Christmas baby. That's so great.
Hardcore dad mode.
By the way, you look like you're about 25.
Oh my God.
He does.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
That's nuts that you're 49.
I don't feel that way.
He's got the good words of genes. Let's hope I get those too. So Pat, we like to start every episode by going deep on your story and getting the full origin story. So tell us, like, how did you end up doing this kind of work? Did you just fall into it? Was this like the plan all along? Give us the story.
So I'll do that. I'll try to go very fast, but I'll go way back. When I was a kid, I remember my dad coming home from work, and I didn't really know what work was, but he was kind of grumpy. And I remember him talking about, work. And I thought, oh man, I love my dad. I don't want him to hate his work. I mean, he didn't hate it. He was very good at it. He was a salesperson. But he'd talk about management and how crazy it was. And I didn't know what the heck that meant. But I remember thinking, this job thing, I guess one day I have to get a job too. So even as a kid, I was kind of fascinated with the job world. So I had my own kind of crummy jobs as a teenager and stuff, which is great. And then I went to college, and I got my first job out of college. And I worked hard in college, and I got the job that everyone wanted. I mean, literally, there was a book written that year in 1987 about the best jobs in America for college grads. And this was the number one job. And I thought, well, I'll apply. And I got it. Okay. So I thought, okay, I'm set. It's paying a lot of money. As it turned out, it was like McDonald's wages because we were working so many hours. They crushed us. But I didn't like it very much. And I didn't do that well in it. And I thought I was a fraud. Like, how did I do so well in school? And now I'm not doing that well. We'll get to why that is. But I remember when I was there, it was a management consulting firm called Bain & Company. And they were like helping companies do analysis and data and all this stuff. And I'd go to the meetings and I'd go, I don't believe any of this data. I think it's the human stuff. These people don't like each other. And I don't care how much data you have. If they do not behave well toward each other and have common sense of why they're here, this doesn't make any sense. And I remember doing work for a big client, and we found out that there was all kinds of politics in the organization. And I said, we should help them with the politics. And one of the leaders on the team, who is a famous CEO now, said, well, they don't pay us to do that, Pat. And I thought, well, that's what I want to do. So that's how I got into this world of human stuff, because I loved psychology, and I'm a person of faith and people, and I loved how people interact with each other. And there were so many people working on what we call the smart part of business, but they weren't working on the human healthy part of business. And so that's how I got into this field. And I went to work for a few software companies, a little one called Oracle, which was just starting, and then another one. And then I started getting job offers to go. Steve Jobs offered me a job at Pixar, and another famous, it doesn't matter that he's famous, but CEO offered me a job at another company. And I thought, wait, but I have this little department at this company I'm at. I want to work with them. And I want to start a little consulting firm that helps companies get healthy and deal with the human side of business. So we started the company. We were very nervous and it started to go well. And then I wrote a book and we were going to take it to Kinko's and make copies to hand out to our clients. And a publisher saw it by accident, kind of, and they published it and people liked it. And then people asked me to speak. And then I wrote another book and we're doing all this. We had no idea it was ever going to grow big. We thought if we have this little consulting firm of 5 people and we can pay our mortgage and pay for our kids to go to school and work together for the rest of our lives, that's enough. And one thing after another happened. And organizational health, we kind of became the group that talked about that. That was kind of our thing. And so here we are 28 years later. The company is 28 years old last month. And every book we'd write, we'd think, well, that's probably the last one. And then we'd go, oh my gosh, this other thing. We've never sat down and said, we need more books. We need products. We just kind of go to clients, follow our nose and our gut. And by the grace of God, something comes out and we put it out there and people like it. So that's the story. I hope that gave you an overview of why I do what I do.
That's a perfect story. And now how many books in are you? So 28 years, how many books in are you?
I think it's 14.
Wow.
Because I wrote a faith book and then one of the books is a workbook. I don't know how you count them all, but I think it's 14.
Okay. And at what point in like in the books, not necessarily timeline, but was there a point in publishing these books that you were like, holy smokes, we made it. We have hit something. We've got lightning in a bottle here. Like, at what point did that part happen?
You know what's weird? It's a great question. And I think I'm still realizing that right now. Like, because I'll talk to somebody and they'll go, oh, yeah, we used your books to run our business. We started our business. We've used your books. And I was just down in Austin and somebody came up to me and told me the story about those books formed the basis of our company. And we've grown to a $1 billion company. And every time somebody tells me that, I go, no. So I guess it occurs to me every once in a while. We always just kind of kept our heads down and said, well, what's the next thing we want to do? And so I don't know that we've really realized it yet.
Yeah.
Or that sometimes we have to get reminded of it. And we're just really glad that we get to do what we love and that people use it well and they're very grateful. And it's a blessing.
And so you're almost 3 decades into this, from
Crazy.
The Five Dysfunctions, which is the seminal book that I was referring to earlier, but there are other great, amazing books, to The Advantage, another one that I think very highly of.
That was the only nonfiction book I wrote.
Huh? Wow. I had
only nonfiction book.
And so when you zoom out, like what's the through line for you? Like what connects all of your work, all of the 14 or so books? Like, is there, if you were to sum it down to kind of one principle you want people to walk away, and teach leaders with, what is that?
When I think about some of the best episodes that we've put out here in the last few months, like with Andrew Golden from Retail Next, or Jenny Molinoy from Vercel, or Shannon Hobbs from BNY, there's one theme that keeps coming up. Everything a company does has to be AI first, and that shift has to start with the leadership team. That includes the support around leaders too. Imagine if every exec at your company had an EA who was already trained to operate in an AI first way. That's where Viva fits in. Every Viva EA is trained in AI workflows, not just prompts, but building the kind of systems that help leaders actually role model what AI native looks like in practice. And on top of that, Viva removes the entire headache of managing EA support. They've built a standardized, scalable system for hiring, training, and managing top-tier executive assistants, trusted by leadership teams at Notion, Grok, and Lovable. You get reliable coverage, consistent quality, and support that actually levels up your leadership team. If you're building an AI-first org and your EA support team hasn't kept up with the shift, Viva was built for you. If you want to give them a try, sign up for a 1-month trial for just $950 at execviva.com/MPL. That's execviva.com/MPL.
Yeah, we didn't know what I was going to say to this question, but now I realize what it is, and that is, I think I am the guy who explains complicated things in simple ways. And I always say, like, I'm Catholic. I always say, if I ever became a saint, and I want to be a saint, but I don't want to be famous. That's not the purpose. But I would be the patron saint of the ignorant. What I mean by that is, I love, and when I went to Bain, all these sophisticated people, they'd have these great jobs. I didn't. I would look at something and I would go, isn't it just this thing right here? Like I make things simple and people come up to me and they say, I read your books because I can actually understand it and use it. And for years, guys, I'll tell you, academia and Wall Street and some of the highbrow companies didn't use our stuff because they thought it was too simple. And now they're like, yeah, it needs to be simple. So I think the thread through everything I do is I look at things, I describe it in a simple way, and I'm very okay with somebody saying to me, well, that's too simple. And I'm like, I know, it is that simple. So I don't think I'm like sophisticated or complex. I think I simplify things in a way that people will say, now I get it. I think I can actually go use this.
And I
Does
think
that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. And I think those are the best books or courses or speakers that you experience, the ones where you leave and you're like, oh, I get it. Like they made that very complicated thing super simple. And so I'm just curious, you've been doing this for 28 years, and I'm sure you've had some ideas that have evolved over the years, or maybe you've completely changed your mind on some things since the early days. What have you changed your mind on? Or has the message remained largely the same? Like if anything has changed, what would you say that it is?
I think that probably, I don't know, there's not one big thing. I remember there was this famous guy named Tom Peters, if you've heard of Tom Peters, and he was a big management author. And I remember even when I was fairly young, like a kid, I remember hearing him. And at one point he came out and said, everything I've written up until now is wrong. And I remember thinking, what? How can that be? That's kind of a bummer. And so there has not been any one massive thing. I'm like, well, that was stupid. But I actually think that as I've gotten older and kind of grown in my emotional health and, counseling and stuff like that we all need, I think I've realized that you can actually not confront every issue right away. Now, having said that, most companies don't confront issues at all. But I grew up Italian and Irish and fairly I'd always run right into the issue. And I think sometimes I've learned that a little bit of patience is actually a good thing. I say that recognizing, though, that most companies avoid almost every big issue they should. And they think that maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Maybe we shouldn't have that hard conversation. And they always regret it later. But I probably ran into the hard conversations a little faster than I needed to. Maybe I could have let the house burn just for a few more minutes before I knew which door to go into.
I'm going to be cheeky here, and I'm going to answer one of the question that Daniel just posed to you, Pat, personally, in terms of not in one thing that I want to challenge or that I don't believe is true, but one thing that the more I have experienced work, the more I have experienced being a leader. I've been blessed to now be a part of 3 entrepreneurial ventures, some more successful than others, some bigger than others. But I mentioned the 5 dysfunctions of teams, and there's a concept of the pyramid of dysfunctions, and the foundation is the absence of trust. And I'm reading here from Google. So Google Gemini may have this slightly wrong, so don't this isn't my definition, but it says the foundation, absence of trust, the foundation. Teams that lack trust avoid vulnerability and are unwilling to admit mistakes or weaknesses. And that seems kind of absolute, right? When you read it, like, okay, wow. And I remember in my heart of hearts feeling like, that can't be, it feels absolute, which is triggering for me. So is that really accurate or not? But man, I tell you what, for me, trust, particularly working with teams and when people and human beings are involved, I have found this to be a true. And my feelings around this statement, at least where the foundation of the pyramid of dysfunction in terms of when there is this absence of trust, you're cooked, as the kids would say. You're going to really, really struggle. And I have found that over and over and over in my career.
You know, it's funny. I go back to that moment. So it was at the credit card company Visa. I'll just tell you, it's been years. And we were doing this work, and I was at Bain that was crunching all these numbers. And I locked myself in a closet for or in a little conference room for 3 weeks and crunched all these numbers. And we presented it to them. And there was this fundamental lack of trust between the strategic planning department and the marketing department. That's what I saw. I had no idea what organizational health was. I had no theories. I just remember going into that room and seeing that they didn't trust each other and thinking, we are wasting their time and money. There is no potential for using this or for improvement in this organization if they don't deal with that. I mean, at a visceral level, I remember thinking, without that, you spend all of your time going to meetings and saying things you don't mean and manipulating and in politics. So even before I even thought about this career, that viscerally landed on me like, well, these people have, until they address this issue, they're not going to get any benefit out of this. So it's so funny. And isn't that just such a simple thing? We knew it when we were kids, right? You go back to childhood experiences and family and relationships and friends, and you go, I don't trust that person. That's a ceiling on what you can accomplish. So it's so crazy. I think that the older I get and the longer the company goes, the more I realize it really does come back to some very simple principles that we just need to remind ourselves of and learn to practice in new ways.
And so on that note, I'm going to keep us rolling because there's still a lot that we want to cover. And so more recently, I think in a few years ago, you put out the 6 types of working genius. I haven't read it yet, in full disclosure. And, but you know, I can't wait. As I prepared for this conversation, I was like, man, I need to get this ASAP on my list. What was the spark for the latest body of work?
Well, like everything else, it was an accident in the sense that I went to work. It was like just over 5 years ago. And COVID was I was in California, so COVID was totally in lockdown for like 2 years. It was crazy. And we were doing all of our work on Zoom. And one day I had a webinar with a group of Catholic priests, and I was teaching how to be better leaders and managers. I was really excited. I love teaching and doing that. Then I had a Zoom call with a bunch of staff members who I needed to give some difficult feedback to, that they weren't working hard enough. I needed to motivate them and kind of rap on the knuckles a little bit. And I didn't like that meeting at all. And then I went to another meeting where we came up with a new idea. It was about, we were like, we should do a podcast. And I was really excited. And the woman, Amy, a friend of mine who was with me working then, she said, why are you like that? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, you go from happy to grumpy to happy in a period of 3 hours. And I don't get it. And she was just curious. And I thought, I don't get it either. It's been going on for 20 years that I would come to work totally excited to be there. And then I would get grumpy. And I thought, what? Do I have a personality disorder? What is going on? When she asked me that question, I said, I got to figure this out. And I just thought about it. And I thought, what am I doing when I'm grumpy? What am I doing when I'm happy? What kind of work is this? There's different kinds of work. And we came up with this model. All I was doing was trying to explain my own grumpiness. And I figured out that day that there's 3 kinds of work. And within each of those 3 kinds of work, there's 2 different activities. And whenever I got grumpy, I was being asked to do something I didn't like to do. I wasn't particularly good at it. And I thought, there it is. I didn't think I was coming up with a product. I thought I just solved my own problem. One of our consultants saw the model that we had on the board, and he used it the next day with the CEO he was working with, who was really frustrated. And the guy had tears in his eyes, and he was like, this explains everything. So then we had it on a whiteboard in my house, and everybody that came over, we would do it with them. And we realized there's something going on here. And then Cody, my partner at work, one of mine, said, this is going to be bigger than the 5 dysfunctions. And I was like, you think so? And he goes, absolutely. And it looks like it's a lot bigger than the 5 dysfunctions now. So it was by accident. I was just trying to explain my own frustration. By the grace of God, I kind of realized what it was for myself. And then other people were like, hey, this works for all of us.
So I took the assessment earlier today. And it's interesting because I've taken tests like this in the past. And I'd say that my, work personality has changed. I think if you would have asked me, let me go look at the categories. So there's wonder, discernment, enablement, tenacity, galvanizing, and invention. I think if I would have taken this test 3 years ago, or this assessment, I would have gotten wonder and invention. Today, when I took it, I was more enablement and tenacity. And I think part of that is having to run a business, and you just have to over rotate, in that direction a little bit. Hey everyone, really quick. I can already tell that this is going to be an episode where you're going to want to take a lot of notes. And that's kind of a pain in the butt when you're casually listening. So we have made it super easy for you. And we've turned the entire episode into a downloadable PDF so that you can enjoy the conversation and grab the notes later. The link is in the description below, so go grab that before you forget. And now, back to the episode.
Well, this is great. And you guys are young guys, so this is a fun conversation. So here's the deal. Working Genius is about the kind of work that gives you joy and energy. It's not like Myers-Briggs or DISC. It's more like kind of personality oriented.
Yeah.
And I love all those tools, we've used them all. But this one is really about the kind of tasks that give you joy and energy and the kind of tasks that drain you of joy and energy. So remember that first job I had at Bain that I didn't succeed in?
Yeah.
As it turns out, the two things they wanted me to do were the things I didn't like the most. And can you learn how to do those things? Well, you can, but it's really bad for you after a while.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to challenge. I want to talk to you about. We believe that you're born with these things because everybody we do this with looks back and goes, oh, I've always wanted to do that kind of stuff. But when you have to do work that you don't like, you can make yourself do it and get good at it. So if you're over rotating because of the nature of what's going on right now, that might be a recipe for burnout. Because burnout is not about working too hard. It's about doing the kind of work that drains you versus the kind of work that feeds you. Because most people, when they get like, I'm burnt out at work, people go, well, take a vacation, take time off. And then they go, but I don't want to. And it's like, no, actually stop doing the kind of work that's crushing you and do the work that feeds you. And that's actually the way out of burnout, not just going golfing, unless you happen to golfing is the only thing you like to do, which is probably not the case.
I do like golf, but not the only thing I like to do. But yeah, no, whenever I got the results back, I was reading through, and I think whenever I filled out the assessment, it was the questions like, how would people on your team describe you? Or I can't remember the scale. It's like, oh, definitely, or no, sometimes, and not at all. I think just like due to the nature of our business and how small it is, like there's like less opportunities for some of like the wonder invention. We get like caught up in like the day-to-day tactical work. And I think you're right. Like, I don't think I'm programmed necessarily to do that work, but I've gotten really good at it because I have to. And I think that's something that Steven and I probably both struggle with a little bit. And it's like not our sweet spot. How do we build a team to take some of this work off of our plate? Or what can we build? And how can we build systems that free up our time for more of the wonder and invention? But this stuff's just so interesting to me.
What I'm kind of hearing from Pat is that this is less about the assessment, and I haven't done it yet. So like I already pulled it up and I like clicked the button. I was like, wait, I'm actually talking.
We should pause right now. I'll have you finish it and come back and tell us.
I'm literally talking to Pat right now. So I should have a conversation with him and do this later. But I think what you're saying,
it takes 10 minutes to fill it out. It's just 10 minutes. So.
I think what you're saying though is regardless of how like you're responding, these assessments are built to highlight the things that give you joy and the things that drain you regardless. And you factor in like gaming and how, avoiding people getting the answer that they want to get, or avoid unintentionally getting like false positives because they kind of interpreted things a different way. And
you were in the assessment business, how people can go, what do they want me to say?
Right.
And this is like, no. There's no benefit to answering anything other than who you really are, because we want to find out what gifts God gave you and let you use those, and what gifts he didn't give you so you don't overuse those.
And so roughly how many people have taken this assessment? Just like rough and tough.
1.5 million people.
Wow.
I know it's grown. It grew so much faster. And we are only now getting super serious about marketing it. Okay. Because we're not a marketing company. We're a small company, and we put it out there and it's been going great. The thing that people say is, so it takes 10 or 12 minutes to fill it out. And you usually get the report back and you read it and you go, okay, I get this. And what you do is it gives you liberation around what you're bad at. Like when I took it, I realized no wonder I failed at my first job. It was exactly the things I hate. There's 6 kinds of working genius, and 2 of them are your working genius, which means you could do it for, it's like pouring coffee in a Yeti mug and screwing the lid on and it stays hot all day. You're like, hey, I can keep my energy up. I can go home after 12 hours of doing the work I like, and my wife will be like, man, you're energized. I'm like, oh yeah, I just did so much discernment and invention. It was a blast. I can go home after 3 hours of doing enablement and tenacity and be like, oh man, that was hard. So I didn't realize that the first job I got out of college, everybody said it was the best job in the world. It was the worst job in the world for me because it was playing exactly to my weaknesses.
And so continue with this, because this is amazing. I love this conversation.
Well, and so here's the interesting thing. So I have this cup here. I've got tea in it. If I pour hot tea in that and I put a lid on it, that's the middle two that you have, which are called your working competencies. But you mean you can do them. It doesn't crush you. Your working frustrations, which are your bottom two, are like pouring tea in that cup and having a hole in the bottom of it. And it just drains right out. I mean, and this is half of it's great to discover your working genius, but it's great to discover your working frustrations. So you can go and like CEOs and employees on teams and people in their homes, they go, hey, look at this. It says I'm really terrible at this and it drains me of my energy. I finally am not going to feel guilty about it anymore, because so many people go through life trying to get good at things they don't like, and they think that's success.
Well, herein lies my next question. So Daniel may have been surprised. Like, I'm just interpreting this real time. We're way off script here, but you see your results. It's not what you're expecting to see. How do those conversations with CEOs typically go when they're like,
we'll see
I could have sworn it was going to be something else, but now you're highlighting this assessment that 1.6 million people have used is now telling me I was expecting ABC, but I'm seeing XYZ. Like, how do I make sense of this?
Well, and I think what Daniel's about to say is there's a difference. You get it back and you go, oh yeah, this is what I spend most of my time doing if you fill it out that way. But it sounds to me, I'll do some consulting right now. Daniel sounds like he likes wonder and invention. He likes ideas, which makes sense given what you guys do. Most people that start a small company, they're driven by the idea. Then they go, we have to implement this. And then he goes, well, if I don't do it, somebody has to step up and do it. So he's doing a lot of the work at the other end of the scale, which is enablement and tenacity. So what's the solution? Not to do it? No, the solution is for him to say, hey, Steve, I don't love this stuff. I'm doing it for the team right now. I know it's a season where I have to do it, but just know it's really painful. And then you can go, oh man, you're taking one for the team. And so, because we all have to do stuff we don't like, but we're not for a long, long period of time. And if we are, it's time to hire. So what you guys might need to do is go, hey dude, we got to get you out of your working frustrations, because it's only a matter of time. And it's worth it to hire somebody who can take things off his plate so he can function in his working geniuses. My wife, let me give you an example of this. My wife, 5 years ago when she took it, when the book came out like 3.5 years ago, she read it and she turned to me and she said, it's great and I'm pissed. And I said, why? And she goes, because I've been doing work outside of my genius as long as we've had kids. Because when we had kids, it was like, okay, who's going to day to day get them to school and make them their lunch and do the laundry and pay the bills? And we knew we didn't have working genius, but Laura would go, man, this is driving me crazy. And I would say to her early in our marriage, find a way to outsource some of that. It'd be worth it to pay somebody and she'd say, no, because I should be a better mom than that. Other women love doing this, what I'm doing, and they're good at it. So I should do it too. And now afterward, I'm just like, I appreciate so much that you were working outside of your genius for 20 years. And I'm sorry you did that. And I'm sorry that you couldn't let go of that. And now she can say, we laugh at things we used to get frustrated about. When we forget to pay a bill or something gets left out, we used to get frustrated. Now we're like, neither of us are good at that. And we laugh like our house is a mess. Yeah, we're trying our best, but that's not something we're ever going to be great at. And that's okay. Whereas in the past, we would feel guilty, like, how come we're not better at this? It's like, because God didn't wire us to do that well. We still have to try our best, but we're never going to be great at it.
And shout out go ahead, Daniel.
No, I was going to say, I think you perfectly described what I was feeling, because some of the questions, Stephen, you'll see it's like, how would people on your team describe you? And if you don't have the opportunity to do certain types of work, then right. You can't really answer the question in a way, So if I think you described everything perfectly, Pat, but the one thing that I really agree with on work that's, I guess, your frustrations, your working frustrations, one of them for me is galvanizing. So rallying people and motivating people to work on something. Because in my mind, I want to have to say the least amount of words possible to get people on board. And that's just not how people operate. You have to campaign for whatever it is that you want. And to me, that's such a frustrating process because I don't want to have to go through that. So I find myself at times just going along with something because I don't want to fight it. I don't want to have to galvanize, even if it's not fully the vision I had for something. And so for somebody that takes this assessment and they see that one of their frustrations is galvanizing, but it's a key part of what they have to do for a living. Let's say they're a CMO and they have 50 people on their marketing team, and to a certain extent, they have to learn how to galvanize. What advice do you give those people? We did a webinar recently on how HR teams are actually using AI, and we had people like Brandon Samut on there from Zapier, and we kept coming back to the same idea. AI only matters if it makes insights usable, and that's exactly what ChartHop has built with AskChartHop. Instead of having to dig through spreadsheets or click through a maze of filters, you can literally type a question and get the answer that you want instantly. Whether that's org charts, churn risk, hiring timelines, pay equity views, headcount plans, all of that can be generated in seconds. When Steven and I saw this live at HR Tech, we were genuinely blown away. I could totally see this being great for an HR leader who needs quick help to prepare for a board report or has to answer a question that comes up at their next C-suite meeting. Like, what better superpower could a people leader have? And so if you've been looking for something like this and you want to see what it looks like in real life, you can try Ask ChartHop at charthop.com/AI. That's charthop.com/AI.
I love this question because galvanizing was the thing that I was doing every day that I didn't want. It led to my burnout and frustration, which is how this whole thing came about. So here I am. I'm the CEO, the president and CEO of my company, or the founder, one of the co-founders, and I'm leading the company. And every day I come to work wanting to do the things I love. And people are like, galvanize us, remind us, we're not doing this, push us harder. And I'm like, I hate that. I hate having to do that. So what should I do? You know what I did? I found somebody on my team. First of all, I'm always responsible for making sure that things get galvanized. That doesn't mean I have to do it all the time, but it's my job to make sure it's being done. So I found a guy on my team who had galvanizing as a genius. And he was pretty young. And I said, listen, I need to help galvanizing. I want you to be the chief galvanizing officer. I want you calling people together every morning and going over the goals that day and reminding people what they need to do and getting people pumped up about that. Now, as the leader, I know I have to do it a little bit, maybe even a lot of it, but not be the full-time galvanizer. And he said, but I'm kind of young. I don't think I have that permission. I said, no, this is a gift. You have a gift in this area. You're going to do it so that I can do what I do. You'll be good at it. And he goes, I would love to do that. See, one person's trash is another person's treasure. He wanted to do the very job I wanted to stop doing. And like, you guys will look at both of your results and you'll look at them and go, okay, these are my true geniuses. So Daniel and Steve, you'll look at yours and go, which of those do we have covered and which of them do we not have covered? And how are we going to cover those? Using other people in the organization or outsourcing something? And in those moments when you have to do the thing you don't like doing, Steve's going to go, hey man, it's okay. You can do this. I know it's going to be hard. And after you get done, he's going to go, hey, thank you for doing something you don't love. And literally just being recognized for that makes all the difference in the world.
If I had to, I would put a lot of money that if Steven took the assessment, galvanizing would be one of his geniuses.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And the event thing, he's like, this will be great. We can do it. Let's go. That's like the thing. And you were like, oh, I have some questions in my brain that I'd like to bring. He's like, no, man, we can do it. Let's go.
So true.
It is so
Pretty
great
spot on.
to be in a relationship with somebody. The real thing about Working Genius is it avoids guilt and judgment, and it gives people grace. So instead of saying, like some types, you can look at somebody and go, why are you so anal? And they're like, I'm not, I'm an ET. I finish things. I get them done. And other people go, why are you so flaky? It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just up here in my brain and up in the clouds. And when you can address that person understanding their geniuses, you're not judging them or making them feel guilty. You're saying to them, I love that you're good at that. Right now we need to do this. How can I help you get that done, even though it's outside of here? So it's just about giving somebody the grace and people being seen. The elimination of unnecessary guilt and judgment is probably the most powerful thing.
So earlier you shared a personal story about your wife and, her kind of reflection and reaction to learning kind of the way she's wired. And so first of all, shout out to your wife and all of the family CEO CEOs out there, the moms out there that are like
Oh,
taking
man.
on things that like literally no one else wants to do, and they're doing it for the family. I don't think we talk enough about that, but that story just resonated. Like it's such a profound level for me, because as CEOs, I think that the family CEO is not all that in this sense, not all that different from an actual CEO, in
No.
that we have to do things that we really don't want to do. But you said that burnout comes from people spending too much time working outside of their geniuses. And so continuing along the lines of like, this conversation, this like real-time consulting and therapy session you're giving us, like what are some recommendations you give? Like if Daniel and I we're spending too much time outside of our geniuses, how do we, and you shared a little bit about this earlier, but how do you get out of that burnout cycle?
So I love this question. Leaders, the reason to be a leader is to be willing to suffer for others that you lead. I mean, you have to do that. Martyrdom is not, it's like, I'm willing to do the hard thing for them. But if you drive yourself into the ground doing that, you can't be a good leader. It's just like a parent. Like, yes, I have to do things for my kids because I'm a parent and it might not fall in my working genius. And for my wife, the same thing. But we're not called to make ourselves miserable. And the thing my wife would have done differently had she known working genius is she would have, without guilt, outsourced some things because she just wasn't great at it, didn't love it. And that would have served the family well. But she was taking it on like, I'm supposed to be miserable. And a lot of CEOs go, I'm supposed to do the work that nobody else wants to do. And that's not good, because then it leads you to not be the best version of yourself. So the thing, what you have to do is you have to say, okay, what is it that my job requires? And when you're a CEO, there's like a number of, there's 5 things that a lot of CEOs don't like to do that you have to do. If you don't love those things or it doesn't fit within your working genius, it is your responsibility to find somebody and anoint them to do those and to hold them accountable for that. That doesn't mean you have to do it. Now, there are going to be times for every CEO when they're like, I'm the last one here, or nobody else has time to do this. Yes, you have to take that on, but it's always in a short-term burst and not a long-term job description, because you are the CEO. I don't even like, one of the things we say about working genius is it kind of eliminates job descriptions. A CEO with one working genius is going to do the job so different than a CEO with another one. Some want to be a visionary CEO and a strategic one. Some want to be like an execution and get the numbers and keep things safe. And those are totally different jobs. And it's okay to go about those jobs differently as long as you make sure somebody's doing the parts that you don't have. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So like, let's imagine you're a director of people, or a VP of people, and you've got 5-10 people on your team. You work for like a 200-person startup, and you want to figure out the zone of genius for each of your members on your team. And you know that you're deficient in galvanizing, let's say. Would the idea be get everybody to take the assessment, and as a leader, I'm going to figure out who can fill in where I currently, it's something that totally drains me. Am I interpreting that correctly?
No, that's perfect. We have a thing where teams take it and they get a team report, and it shows the 6 working geniuses and which ones are missing on your team. And people look at it and they just right away, they just go, well, no wonder that project failed. None of us want to do that. Or no wonder people get stressed out because we don't have anybody in this area. Then the next time you go to hire somebody, rather than just go, because like this is what happens. Let's say I need to hire a director of compensation. And you go, okay, I'm going to see if somebody's done that job before. No, it's like, no, ask yourself what kind of director of compensation you need based on the team they're going to be on and what geniuses they need to bring to that team. I like to say marketing. It's an interesting one. People go, we need to hire a head of marketing. And then they go out and look for people that have done it before and they have a good track record of it. And I'm like, do you want an ideation marketing person that's going to come up with a new strategy? Do you want somebody that's going to crank out leads so you can close deals? Do you want somebody in the middle who's just going to manage people and get them to do stuff? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, well, figure that out before you hire, because you could hire the world's greatest marketing person at the wrong kind of work that you don't need. And I'm going to tell you, CEOs hire executives all the time without thinking of this. Staffing companies are starting to use this tool to actually say, okay, I know you think you need a head of marketing, but what kind? We want to find a person that's going to fit the work you want them to do, not the title. And it's crazy. We don't even think about jobs in terms of titles anymore. We really look at, do they have some experience in that area? More importantly, do they want to do the kind of work we need them to do? I mean, I hired an assistant when I moved to Tennessee, and I said, I need somebody with discernment and tenacity. I want somebody that I don't have to tell what to do. She's going to look at everything going on and go, I know what he needs to work on. And she's going to follow through. And she has changed my life because we found somebody with those geniuses. And I could have found the most wonderful person in the world who was just like me. And it would have been like doubling down on my challenges. So anyway, I just think that when we do hiring, we have to think about what geniuses we're looking for more than just what resume items.
And I feel like we would be remiss to not bring up AI in a podcast in early December of 2025.
Yeah.
You know, I think that historically, everything that you are mentioning, you know, this flow of conversation, I think is hitting Daniel and I really hard, just in terms of how we think about the work we're doing together as a co-founding team, but also just, you know, leadership in general. And traditionally, you know, you would have the problem of, okay, I subscribe to a similar line of thinking that all business problems are people problems, but today, that's starting to change. And it's not just people problems, you know, we are quickly running into bot problems. And, you know, and so I'm just going to start really broad. Like, how do you spend any time thinking about AI? Where does this factor in? Like, we cannot have a conversation on this podcast without AI being kind of the leading topic. And it's been refreshing to not even talk about this until minute 47 into a podcast recording. And so I'm just curious, like, how much do y'all think about it? How does this factor into, you know, these concepts that we're talking about?
You know, AI is fascinating to me because we talk about it, but we talk about AI and we're often meaning different things. The way I look at it in my brain is there's three kinds of AI. There's language learning models, which is like ChatGPT. My son uses it in college, hopefully for good, because it helps him study for tests and organize things. Hopefully he's not writing papers with it. But I think ChatGPT and things like that can be useful tools to make us a little bit more productive and quick to do. You used it today earlier. So I think that's one kind of AI. On the whole other end of the spectrum, there's countries that are using AI to figure out how to use their weapon systems to marginalize other countries. And I know we have a big struggle with China right now. They're using AI. And if there's no true north, AI can lead them to doing things that they might not really choose to do, but it's really dangerous. That kind of AI scares me because it's actually, what do they call it? It's adaptive learning. Mm-hmm. And it actually starts to do things. It can even mislead you and it can even lie. And that's crazy. But let's talk about AI here. The kind of AI I'm most concerned about in terms of the work I do is that we are actually replacing human beings with computers and drones and robots, but it's AI that doesn't make sense. We're doing it just because we can. It's like that old the Jurassic Park movie where he says, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And yeah, there's some businesses that are like, hey, yeah, it's helpful that we can use AI. Many cases, it's like, is there any human benefit to coming to the office and working with other people? Do we really have to get rid of? And how many times do we as consumers get so frustrated that we're not dealing with a human being? And I think there's too many people in the world of technology and in business who aren't understanding that the human touch still matters. It's not black and white. You can talk about the pros and cons of any decision to replace a factory with a bunch of drones or whatever else. But I think one of the things we're losing sight of is, one, the dignity of work and why that matters in people's lives. We're also losing sight of the fact that we're eventually going to have no customers left because there's not going to be jobs. And people need jobs in order to buy toothpaste that gets flown to your house by a drone. And the other day, Elon Musk, who's an interesting cat, said one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. He said, in the future, work will be a choice. And it's like, he does not understand the human being. And he's kind of a drone himself, I think. And I'm not anti-Elon Musk and everything he does, but human beings need to work in order to feel a sense of dignity and contribution to society. And when we think that we're going to have a society where nobody works, what we're doing is we're saying you're not going to contribute, you're not going to give, you're not going to pour into other people. I think that's just crazy. So what's the solution? I'm going to stop using companies that are outsourcing jobs that don't need to be outsourced, I'm going to choose the companies that still use people. Now, it's not a black and white thing. It's not easy to do. But there's a few companies that I said to my wife, let's not buy things from them anymore, because they actually would just love to get rid of all of their employees so that they can make yet another percentage point of margin and get that much richer for the handful of people who run the company at the expense of the tens or hundreds of thousands that need a job to pay for their kids' clothes and food. So I'm a capitalist. I'm a free market guy, but I'm also a person that believes that there's dignity in the human experience. And damn it, I still rather go through the thing at the supermarket where somebody checks out my stuff than have to do it all myself.
Me too. I always choose that line.
Not me. I always go self-checkout.
Right. And I suppose that's good to have a choice, but pretty soon there's not going to be a choice. Or I think it's probably because, Daniel, you like to sneak in extra stuff that you don't have to pay for, because everybody knows.
Come on.
Busted.
I'm just teasing. But you know what I do when I go to the grocery store? They always have a person standing there because everybody needs help.
Yeah.
And they kind of have to watch it. I'm like, hey, do people steal? And they go, oh yeah, they steal all the time. So
That's
are
funny.
we factoring that into the, anyway?
So it's inevitable that a lot of the, I'm not even going to say frustrating work, because I think sometimes like the tedious manual work can be in somebody's zone of genius. And so by eliminating it, it's going to take away work from people that enjoy it and that is their area of genius. And so I'm curious, like, what do you think is going to happen here in the next 5 to 10 years? More and more companies try to eliminate, as you said, as many roles as possible that they deem to be, I guess, administrative or not requiring as much human judgment. And we're all almost like forced into one or two zones of genius.
It's a great question. And what I say is this: know what your working genius is, so that when your job gets eliminated, you don't think that you're limited to that job. Like you're a computer programmer right now, let's say. Did you hear the University of Washington eliminated their computer science department?
What?
Yeah.
That is
because they know
wild.
it's like, why are we going to teach kids how to do this? AI is going to take 80% of those jobs. And that's what and I'm almost sure that's true. They definitely eliminated a big part of that, their computer science stuff. And I read that. So, but the problem is this. So people that like computer science, they actually have a working genius that can be used outside of computer science. So maybe if you were like, oh, I always wanted to be a computer programmer. Well, that's only one way to use your genius. There's probably other fields, other industries, other kind of work that you can still use your genius. So don't limit yourself to an industry or a job type. Somebody else could say, well, I'm an insurance adjuster. And then now they're doing that. I don't know. Nobody is born to be an insurance adjuster. They're born to use the skills God gave them, and they can apply to so many different industries. So go figure out what your working genius is so you have options. Don't limit yourself to what your college major is or some industry that your grandfather did and you thought you had to go into just because of that.
So I'm going to circle back to what I shared with you about one of your bodies of work that I have become a bigger believer in, and that is, going back to the importance of trust. And Daniel and I have these conversations multiple times a week. And, it's a privilege, and we're so lucky to be able to do what we do. And in the last month, we've met with the CHRO of LVMH, the luxury brand company, and AI companies, and like all sorts, the CHRO of Bank of New York, the oldest bank in the country. And one thing as it relates to AI and the workplace that we keep hearing over and over are issues with trust, issues with fear, and that ultimately lead to trust problems, like trust problems in the sense of like, where is the future headed? Am I going to lose my job? You're telling me, that this is for the greater good, but I'm also kind of reading some of the signs, reading the room here that like there are more headcount reductions coming. And so in this kind of world, I don't know if you are hearing the same or you kind of are sensing that same tension. And so I'm circling back because I believe trust to be so important. And, we rarely have someone like, who's an expert in this specific topic. And like, if we had a group of 50 leading edge HR leaders like on this, like, call with us, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to them in terms of like steadying the ship and just like reinforcing that there is trust? Or what is that first step in strengthening the foundation of trust in a time right now where it seems almost impossible to do that for HR leaders?
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but what they should do is just be brutally honest. Not and when I say brutally, what I should completely honest and kind. They should just say, yeah, that could happen. That's not what I hope. That's not necessarily but yes, that could happen. And so I understand your fears and I share them. When companies tell people, it's like when companies acquire another company and they say, nothing's going to change. It's going to be fine. It's like, I so admire the companies that go, no, we're going to change a lot and there's going to be a lot of loss. And I would rather tell you the truth and have you prepare for that and be pleasantly surprised if it doesn't than lie to you and make you feel duped when something happens. So what I would say, what companies should say is, yeah, it is possible. And it's so, I find so many things in life are counterintuitive. It's like, be like boldly honest with people and you will win their loyalty. And it's a long-term, it's like a medium to long-term loyalty. Tell them what they want to hear in the moment and then betray them in the medium and long term and you've lost it. Be kind of crazy and say, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm right there with you. I want to work for that leader, not the one that tells me something that is in the memo that they told them to share with people and you know that they're not telling you the truth. What do you guys think? Does that make sense to you?
That definitely made sense. And we only have 9 more minutes with you. I have one more question for you. So something that I've observed working for a handful of different leaders is that you can tell when a leader's like working outside of their zone of genius, or they're trying to adopt like a leadership style that maybe doesn't fit them. And so I guess my question is like, do you find that there are different leadership styles based on your zone of genius? And if so, like, how do you fully tap into that leadership style?
I love it. First of all, tell people what your strengths and your weaknesses are and be totally upfront. It's one of the most, because vulnerability, trust is based on vulnerability. So if you're a leader and like I'm an ID in Working Genius, that means I like invention and discernment. Okay. And that's pretty high up in the like closer to the clouds rather than feet on the ground. I'm okay at W and G and I'm terrible at E and T. I should stand up in front of my people and say, hey, this is who I am. They already know it, by the way. They've watched you. And say, I just want you to know I'm not good at these things. I'm okay at these things and I love doing these things. And I want you to know you can call me on it whenever you see me. You're going to notice that I suck at some things and you're going to probably come up and say, hey, you shouldn't do that because you're bad at that. When you give people permission to tell you what you suck at, it's like a different world. And there's humor usually involved in it. And they're like, so, we've known this forever. We've watched you work for the last 3 years and every time you have to get something done with any specificity or any accuracy, it's never accurate. And you're like, I know, I hate it. I'm terrible at it. And then you have them do the same. Then lead from who you really authentically are. Authenticity is so, so important. And you might authentically have to do something you suck at. And you should go, okay, you guys, I'm going to take this one for the team. I know nobody else can do it. As you know, I suck at this. I'm going to give it my best. But when you see me flailing, feel free to point it out. It gives you permission to just be who you are. Do not pretend to be something you're not. And I've seen so many leaders go, I wish I had this. And they try to do it and they look like a fraud. And then they become the emperor with no clothes or like, I'm pretty good at this, right? And it's like, no, you're terrible at that. And let people be the ones to tell you that. So I think that this is one of the fastest ways to build trust on a team because it gives you permission to point out. The other thing, it gives you permission to give other people feedback and say, hey, you know how you get up and do those presentations? Well, I don't think you're great at that. And I'll help you, but do you really want to do more of that? Or do you want us to figure out a better way to get this done? It changes the whole conversations with people. I can have better conversations with my employees now because I know what they're good at. And sometimes they're in denial, like, no, I think I'm actually pretty good at that. And I'm like, I love you, but no, it's not. And so anyway, that's what I would say to do. Lead from who you are and make it just be totally buck naked with people about what your strengths and weaknesses are. It takes the pressure out of things, man.
I don't know which really detailed oriented work and minutia, like what categorization that falls into in this. I'm going to do my profile later today, but
let me explain the three.
I can guarantee you that whichever bucket that is will be one of the areas I suck at. And for the last week, I have told Daniel and Regina, another teammate of ours, guys, I have to do these detailed program. I have to design the program. And like, I came up with this harebrained idea. I convinced you guys to do this. I can't just like dump this on you. So I'm going to disappear, because that's the only way I know that I will like have to force myself to do this work. And it's going to mean I am going to drop some rocks. And like Daniel, yes, like everyone has just been like stepping up, and it is like, and that was one moment. I'm not saying I do this. That was one time I did this, because I know how painful and how bad I can be at this. And so
Awesome.
I think that, like I said earlier, my mind has been racing, because there's so many different areas where I think I can do this and I can be better. And for me, it's like, as a leader, one of the things that I value, and I see this in Daniel, every single day, is the pursuit of getting better, of like knowing we're not perfect, knowing we're flawed because we're human, and being committed to the pursuit of getting better. And that's, I think, all we can ask of each other. And so anyhow, I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that was
it totally does. I love this. You guys are getting ready for this event. When an event comes up, it's all hands on deck. It's like, hey, I don't care what your working genius is, dude. That thing broke. Somebody has to fix it. And everybody knows that. That's like urgency. Now, even then, it's like, you'll be better at fixing that. Please go fix that, But what you don't want to do is work on personal development of trying to get good at the things you're not naturally good at. When Michael Jordan went to the pros, he was not a great outside shooter. And after his first year in the pros, he was incredible at defense. He was much better than I even knew he'd be. He could dunk. We all know how he plays. And somebody said, should we make him go shoot all summer to get better at that? And they said, no. Tell him to get better at the things he's great at. Then he will be able to get better at shooting, because he knows it's not like the priority. The worst thing you can do is to say to somebody, hey, if you don't get better at the thing you don't like, you're not going to be successful. Now they're going to be bad at all of it. And it's kind of that thing we tell kids in school. Well, you're disciplined. You need to get more creative. Oh, you're the creative one. You need to be more disciplined. And suddenly it's like, no, lean into what you're great at. Do your best at the things that you're not great at when you have to, but admit that it's not great. And people will stop. Because you know what happens when you get good at the things you don't like? People ask you to do them more. That's a nightmare. So I would say, and I want to say this while we're on here, after you do it, Steve, and take your other staff through it, I'll do a 20-minute debrief with you, because we'll look at the thing. It'll be so fun to look at how this plays out.
I've got a link for you, Steven. I think we have like 4 or 5 people that can take it with our link.
Okay,
so
cool.
And by the way, the people listening to this if they go to workinggenius.com, they can take it and check out with MPL is the code, MPL, and get a 20% discount, which means it costs $20 to figure out what your geniuses are. It takes 10 minutes and $20, and it changes.
No brainer. Well, I feel like that was sort of a mic drop moment right there with the Michael Jordan reference. And so the last segment of the podcast is something we call rapid fire questions. So we ask the questions are a little bit different today because you're not a chief people officer, CHRO, but we tweaked it a little bit. So
but I can play one on TV. So yeah, tweak it, but I love that.
Yeah. Question 1, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody starting work today?
Focus on the 3 virtues of being a team player. And that is, be humble. Don't make it about you, make it about others. Be hungry, go a little above and beyond. Don't do the minimum. And be smart. Not intellectually smart, but interpersonally smart. Learn how to have higher EQ than IQ. People that are humble, hungry, and smart will always have a successful career, because people are going to want to be around them. When we're either ego-driven, lazy, or emotionally unintelligent, that's when we have problems in our career.
Love that. Next question. If your team gave you a superpower nickname, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. They would call me like the amazing guesser. My working gene, and my kids give me a hard time. Like, I can look at a situation and go, I think the answer is going to be that. And they'll go, why? And I go, it's just my gut. That's part of and dang it if I'm not right all the time. Not all the time. Much of the time. And it drives my kids crazy, because, when their dad does it, they're like, oh crap, he guessed again, because they really want to get me wrong. But so I think one of my superpowers is that I'm pretty good at guesstimating things. And when we make decisions in our business, you know how I do it? I go around the table and I said, okay, everybody write down what you think how much we should charge for this product before we look at any data, and we just write it down. And then I listen to everybody and we look at it. We know the price. That's it. We just saved because I really trust people's intuition.
I feel like Steven's holding himself back there. He likes to say he uses where-tonomics, and it's very similar to what you just described.
Yeah, you probably have discernment. Yeah.
Pat, who do we need to have onto the show next?
Have you had John Gordon on?
No.
Do you know him?
No.
Do you know who he is?
No. I feel like I need to now.
Yeah. He's written some awesome books. He's one of my favorite people. And he's an author of all these different books. And it's all about the human part of work and about life. And so John Gordon, and I'll make a connection for you.
Amazing. And with that, Pat, we're at the very end of the show. We have one final tradition. We call it one word or phrase close. So as we reflect on the hour and change that we've just spent together, which has been amazing, Pat, thank you again. Just a word or few that kind of wraps things up in an appropriate way. And again, we prefer for our guests to go first.
Gratitude. Not easy for me. I need to be better at it. So many things to be grateful for in this season. And even just meeting guys like you, like who knew that this was in my, I get to spend time with you. You guys are fantastic. So gratitude.
I'm going to say, find your zone of genius.
I love that. I'm going to go with reflection. I think we've done a lot of reflecting in the conversation on the topics, but also reflecting on ourselves. And even, Daniel, I know we have our own asynchronous document that we're taking notes in, and it's like you've left us with a lot to talk about. And, maybe we will have a group reflection once I complete my assessment and we take you up on that 20-minute offer. But man, this has been, I always describe these podcasts as the best part of my week, Pat. And this truly has been a highlight of my week. So we can't thank you enough for carving out time to join us on our podcast. And hopefully you're now part of the MPL family. And we like to have our guests back. Hopefully you'll join us again sometime.
I would love it.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, you guys. God bless.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to know what you think about the show, and you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.